All right, so far what we've done in Unreal is we've used the landscape tool to start to add topography, to our scene. This is a scene where I've started to paint in some things. And the next thing we're going to do is I want to kind of give you an idea of what I'm thinking. So in this particular shot, I have my little scene set up with my mountains here, and with what I have is my reference elements, that human, so I can kind of see things from his point of view, or his or her point of view. So I'm going to zoom in. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build a little set piece. I have these objects in the scene, that's okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using rocks, and I'm going to be using foliage with my paint tools. I'm going to be using trees. All of these are models that have been provided to us from and props like this sort of stuff. These things have been provided to us in the lessons that we're going to be working with. So let me show you what I'm doing. I'm making a little grotto, if you will, a little scene with some trees, with some rocks, and what I'm going to be doing is painting in the details. So I'm going to select a set of rocks, and I'm going to be painting in these objects one by one. And I'll go through that process in a minute because I just want you to kind of see where I'm focusing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus the camera in this area. Now I have my main objects. Now I have some features that I brought in. And these are going to be things that I've brought in from my own search out there on the internet. I found a really cool set piece here, and I haven't painted in the details. But what I'm doing is I'm blocking in. I'm setting these rocks. I'm setting in my key feature, which is this cemetery angel, and I'm just dragging in objects. So, for instance, in this particular scene, I want to drag in some rocks. I'm going to drag a rock in to my scene, and I'm going to place it in my scene wherever it is that I want. In this particular case, I might want it I put in these rocks first. We'll get to that in a minute. But I'm going to build my set with my composition in mind. So this is what I mean by that. In this scene, I want to be able to photograph that cemetery piece, this little angel, but I also want to have foreground and background objects. So I need to have my grasses here. I need to have rocks. I'm going to be moving from shot to shot. I might look and go into my scene and find some interesting points of view where I might want to raise my camera and do some moves cinematically. So I'm looking around this scene, but I'm also I did sketches of what I wanted to build. So I'm going to be just working in this area just like this. So even though I have my landscape, I might go and I select my landscape and I frame it in. Here's that landscape, right? But I'm really building a set. That set is going to be built around my hero object, if you will, or my main photographic element. And this is the part I'm worried about. I'm not worried about any of that other stuff. So I want to have a composition, and I'm just simply going to move, and I'm going to create these main things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build my backdrop here. I'm going to decide where I want to build this. So I wanted the mountains to be in the back. So when I paint the mountains and the rocks and stuff, I'll get to that later on. But I want to build up around that. I want to have some trees. So I brought in some separate trees that I'm bringing in individually. And these trees here can be scaled up. All of these trees here, these are actually painted trees, so they're treated like a single unit. The trees and the grass, all of that is really just a single unit of clones. So I can paint that basically in bulk. So all of that stuff is really just clones of one another. I've added these set pieces here just to fill in the background, just so when I move the camera, those little subtle things like that log on the ground back there could be visible, and it provides some interest. Maybe there's people that live in this area. We don't really know the story. We just know that it's kind of a cool shot. And so that's what I'm going for. I'm really kind of going for just a cool cinematic types of photographs. So I've got all that sort of thing laid out in my mind. And so I'm going to then start building these set pieces just like I would if I was in a movie or in theater. You know, I've got to move this stuff in a position where my light's going to be, where is all this stuff going to be. Here's a tree that's actually leaning at a weird angle. I'm going to have to fix that. But it may not even matter because it may not ever show. So if it doesn't show, I'm not going to worry about it today at the moment, but I would be watching out for stuff like that. So this is what I'm going for in my mind, okay? So even though I have this giant landscape, I'm really not trying to paint all the details of these mountains. I'm just going to paint the area that I want. Now, if we were making a game that we had to go through it and run through this entire environment, what I would have is a bunch of space and then small props, maybe a little city, maybe a building, and then I would paint in that area. So little props and then large areas of grass and space and that you can travel across with rocks. I might put a pond out here and that sort of thing. So if I was to actually play this game and run through my scene, I can run through this scene. And here are all these props, and I actually have houses over there, and I can actually run through and over this terrain and down through the hills and back up and all that sort of stuff. But for this particular project, all I'm worried about is this shot right here, where I'm moving around this scene and I'm going to focus on this environment. If I can get this environment nailed, then I'll build another one and then I can run through that. So anyway, that's what I'm going for. So the next video that I'm going to do is really just kind of focus on building up this scene and how I kind of approached doing just that.